As each day passes, David's future is looking darker and darker, and rightfully so after all of his new evidence that was just revealed. However, while sadly no jail sentence can reverse the tragedy which went down in his garage, the truth is, David is now eligible to pay the highest price possible.
The determination on whether or not the district attorney's office will seek the death penalty will be made at a later time.
In a state like California, where as of May, over 550 inmates were housed and awaiting their execution, that's more than 25% of all death sentences in the entire country. Therefore, the question now becomes, what will actually happen to David next? And will the former viral music star seriously be sentenced to his death? As of today, 27 states currently allow capital punishment as a form of legal penalty here in the United States. Again, California is one of them. Only allowed to be imposed on defendants, though, who are convicted of capital offenses themselves, including murder. Unfortunately, that is what we have on our hands here. And if it comes down to it, we already know David's preferred method to go out.
Their surgery will probably give me mental problems. I already got them. Give me more. I'm trying to get electric chair for him. I think that's the best way to go out, electric chair.
With some online users even begging for a live stream should the event take place. If you ask me, David doesn't even deserve the chance to choose his method. I mean, his own brother seems to agree as well, calling for all lives to end.
Hey, excuse me, quick question. Oh shit. What are you up to?
You call me my work clothes, bro. You know, I still got the tie. I'm trying to clean up a little bit.
You think Tyler's gonna get all that out?
I hope so.
Before we get into what David's current day-to-day prison schedule consists of, including a new early wake-up time of 4 a.m., in order to understand whether or not David will actually meet the electric chair, first we have to break down this disturbing recent evidence. Despite one of David's financial managers testifying that the 21-year-old singer had generated over $10 million via his music, and come on, it was clear he was getting money simply by this house he was living in, with a rent of $23,000 a month. Back up on the market, by the way, if any of you guys are interested. Despite all of his success and billions of streams though, David was still not satisfied. And after meeting online for the first time in 2023, less than 2 years later, David was throwing everything away for a girl in middle school. But more importantly, in the process, robbed the young Celeste Rivas Hernandez from the rest of her life.
Where's your media
I personally don't.
Yo, I media trained you.
No, you didn't.
That's controversial.
It's controversial of kids. No, I need to.
Really good.
Okay,
It's been a good one. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Mwah, 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 mwah. Oh my. Delete everything. Delete everything. Everything goes.
Although it was obvious the two knew each other thanks to concerning clips like this one from an old stream together, what we weren't aware of was the exact details surrounding the night of the incident. Details that, as we're about to learn, now make David's chances of escaping the death penalty significantly slimmer. On April 23, 2025, the night she was last seen, David Anthony Burke invited Celeste over to his rented mansion in the hills. But as soon as she arrived at 10:01 p.m., newly presented text messages tell us, "Girly Pop, I'm almost there. Open your door if you are home," were the last words that Celeste would ever type, who had instead been saved as Cell in David's phone, spelled C-E-L. "Got you," David replies. And 10 minutes later, gate open, door unlocked. Sadly, right here is then when prosecutors allege Celeste Rivas Hernandez took her final breath. However, this is also the extremely important part to remember for David's own upcoming fate. Because while I'm no lawyer, in court this is what is called a special circumstance known as lying in wait. As soon as Celeste walked in his door, David attacked and ambushed her by surprise, before moving to his garage, which had rather been converted into a home gym and arcade, like we can see from here.
Welcome to my arcade! So we got some arcade games.
Oh my god!
And this is the camera. Yup.
So here is the pictures of David's garage that was literally covered in blood that we figured out about yesterday. If you guys remember, we heard about blood being on these black mats right here that David had in his garage, and there was also blood on this rowing machine, which is right here. You know, because yesterday's testimony, they said when they lifted up these mats on this floor right here, which appears to be like a brick floor, it was covered in blood. David actually has a double garage. So when you get into this photo right here, it's actually what you see up top of here. You can see the two mirrors on the wall right here. They are right here.
This particular Twitch stream with Cat's Eye took place in February of 2025, so about 2 months before the alleged incident had occurred. However, after ending the young Celeste's life, the big question still stood: why? Well, following David's first appearances in court, we are now able to pinpoint his vicious motive behind this answer. According to prosecutors' preliminary brief, knowing he had to silence the victim before she ruined his music career as she had threatened, David stabbed Celeste to death multiple times. Believe it or not though, this tragic night was not some sudden argument that went wrong, but rather, in the days leading up, Celeste had apparently voiced her concern about David's friendship with another girl. You really saying you'd end our friendship just to be friends with her over me is disturbing and disgusting to me on a deeper level, Celeste had sent just 3 days before her demise. feeling a bit jealous and potentially relationally threatened, and then at one point even threatening David herself, typing, "I swear to God, I will kill you. She was in my damn seat. I will strip you to death, bro." Keep in mind though that this was a 14-year-old girl who was likely experiencing her first major breakup. And it's not like these two were just a short fling either. No. I regret to inform you that David had even put Celeste through pregnancy and abortion despite her young age.
Detective said, showed explicit photos of the couple having engaged in sexual intercourse. But it wasn't just that. That detective also alluded to text messages between the two of them, David and Celeste, that talked about a pregnancy, an abortion when Celeste was about 13 years old. The couple even discussed moving in together.
So, with the extent of their relationship considered, believing that she was a danger to his career if she ever exposed their secret to the world, David figured that there was only one solution left: to take Celeste's life. However, did David seriously think he would get away with this? Well, for a while, he did. In the hours following the murder in his garage, David got right to work attempting to cover up his tracks, combined with texting to ask where Celeste was at when he obviously knew. In the following weeks, David then proceeded to use these two chainsaws which he had purchased off Amazon to dismember the teenager's decaying limbs, along with this inflatable pool, which he also had delivered via Amazon to the scene of the crime like the idiot that he is.
What the hell? It says on May 1st, 2025, defendant ordered and subsequently Amazon delivered 2 chainsaws to his home? No way. On May the 5th, 2025, the defendant ordered from Amazon, which delivered a body bag, heavy-duty laundry bags, and a blue inflatable pool to his home. Look, I'm not in the business of giving out tips on how to commit murder, but by God, ordering on Amazon to your own home.
But from here, prosecutors allege that David's next move was to place the chopped up remains in black body bags, and for some stupid reason, stuff them away in the front trunk of his Tesla, where they'd go on to sit for months. And if you're wondering how no one else noticed such an unmistakable smell,
I apologize in advance for the way my bathroom smelled. I took a like 2 hours ago.
I don't care, I just took it.
Another one? Tight That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Yo, I had to go.
little did David's friends here know that what they really smelled were the remains of a fresh crime scene in his garage, literally only a few feet below them. You see, as the preliminary brief states, after putting his chainsaws to haunting use, David had lied to friends, business associates, and others about the strong smell of decay in and around his home. But for his car, the black Tesla Model Y with literal human remains rotting in its trunk, I'm not joking, David thought that he'd just throw some of these classic Christmas tree air fresheners in there and then call it a day.
And here's the detail that caught my attention about where in the car those air fresheners were found. They were not just in the interior, they found them in the center console, they found them in the back seats. They also found air fresheners in the front trunk.
With TMZ telling us that at least 11 air fresheners had been scattered throughout David's whip. That was until 4 months later in September.
We begin with that breaking news. Details after a body was found inside a car at a Hollywood tow lot today. There's no immediate information about the identity of the person found inside, but Eyewitness News has learned the 2023 Tesla is registered in Hempstead, Texas to multi-platinum artist and musician David Anthony Burke, known professionally as David.
When news first broke about a year ago about a decomposing body that had been found in the Tesla registered to the viral music artist David, not only was the internet stunned, but nobody believed that David seriously had any involvement. First of all, David was on tour at the time playing sold-out shows for his new album, in Minneapolis to be exact, on the night of the police's discovery, while remember the body had been found states away in Hollywood.
He didn't kill anybody, bro. He didn't kill anybody. There's no way. There's no way he's been on tour. He's been on tour. He literally performed yesterday. Bro, do you see the videos that he makes?
Yet, the second reason why none of us were able to make sense of this crazy headline was that this guy David had always come off as so nice and polite whenever he was online or in public, such as here on stream with Jason the Ween.
We're gonna end it off with a backflip. Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Oh.
That looks like it hurt more than the last one.
Yeah!
Always appearing so happy and with a giant smile on his face. Not to mention David had just collaborated with massive brands including Fortnite and Crocs. Thus, me personally, it was impossible to believe this guy was involved in something this horrific. But although internet detectives wasted zero time connecting clues, meanwhile, LAPD on the other hand waited a lot longer to take action, wanting to ensure that their case had absolutely no cracks. As a result, David would go on to roam free for another 7 months after the day Celeste's body was found in his car, having to be on total edge, knowing that police could buzz through his door at any second. That was until, thankfully, the moment we'd all been waiting for finally arrived.
It's gonna obscure my view from the gate. It's gonna...
You try to run or you try to resist, you won't get hit with my feet or you get hurt.
I got you.
If you try to run, we're cleaning our premises and you will
Met by a deep squad of armed officers at his LA hideout, David was finally arrested in April of 2026. And while I will also recommend that you watch my previous video, diving more in depth on David's life during those insane 358 days, at the same time, considering that officers would seize David's personal devices as well for evidence, only to find them loaded with about the worst content imaginable.
What authority said they allegedly found on David's devices? And I will tell you right now, shocking. Talk to me about the big bombshell. Apparently they found what, or allegedly found what on David's devices?
So she said the words, the prosecution said a significant amount of
Cementing zero doubt that David is a total monster, the discussion now becomes, where does David go from here? Don't get me wrong, I think I know where he is headed eventually, but what about today while still on Earth? How will justice exactly be served? Is David currently breathing his own last breaths? Rather than sold out crowds like he was used to, David Anthony Burke has traded in screaming fans for now a courtroom with shackled chains around his wrist. Actually, the judge did rule that David's hands could be uncuffed, but he still has to remain shackled down to his chair at all times. Depicted here by court drawings next to his lawyer, and again here looking bored as hell in his orange jail jumpsuit. An outfit that David is forced to change into every morning following his 4 a.m. wake-up call and shower. If you're wondering what the rest of David's daily schedule looks like behind bars, his mandatory prison routine reportedly starts with a breakfast served at 6 a.m. to anchor the day, then lunch around 11 and dinner at 6. However, this is far from the extravagant dining that David had been used to in LA. Instead, his breakfast and lunch typically consists of cold items, and dinner is generally the day's only hot meal. And aside from one source telling us that he has not had anybody come to visit him, David eats all 3 of his meals alone and remains isolated from the other inmates. He stays monitored every second by 24/7 surveillance, and the former musician is only permitted to leave his cell for limited movements within the facility, the Los Angeles Twin Towers Correctional Facility to be precise. So, with a new reality measured in scheduled welfare checks, cold meal trays alone in his unit, and wake-up calls before the sun is up, our final question is, how long will David have to be there? Last month in July, as the first step where a judge decides if there's enough evidence to proceed on to trial, included in his grueling 5-day-long hearing in Los Angeles, the lead prosecutor would present the court with graphic photos of Celeste's dismembered and decomposing body after it had been found in David's trunk. Recreated here by drawings, there was an image of Celeste's torso and her head in the trunk of the car, and the prosecutor had to ask what it was because you could not tell it was a head, said the family's attorney. It was absolutely deplorable.
And I just got home and thought about that horrible picture of the body and the limbs all put back together and just how bad of a state she was in. And I just feel so awful for her family. And like, everything that I've witnessed in this trial is the worst stuff I've ever seen. I've seen so many like gang murders and crimes and stuff, but like I've never seen anything so bad.
These were really graphic images when they were shown in court. There was an audible gasp from people in the courtroom when the images came up.
The discovery of the body in this case is a critical piece of evidence. And so it is ugly, it is gruesome, it has got to be so difficult for those family members to sit through it.
Honestly, I can't even imagine how anyone in that courtroom had to feel seeing those pictures. But as for David, the reason this mess exists in the first place, reporters say that he showed little visible or audible reaction to the gruesome material that was discussed.
Including during disturbing, unsettling portions of testimony. When the prosecution showed the court images we hadn't seen previously, showing the victim's remains in cadaver bags that were found in the front trunk of his car, I was watching David. He was staring straight ahead at those exhibits, not visibly reacting in any kind of way. It really makes you wonder who this person is and what might be going through his head right now.
When David's 5-day hearing wrapped up, and after more than a dozen witnesses had been questioned, to no surprise, the judge ruled that all this presented evidence provides enough probable cause to warrant a trial. Now bearing the burden of having to prove these allegations beyond reasonable doubt, although it's how the law works, in my opinion, this shouldn't be too difficult, and prosecutors seem to agree. Based on the mountains of evidence presented, the deputy district said, all of the allegations have already been proved beyond the standard required to warrant trial.
Breaking news, after a 5-day preliminary hearing, a judge rules singer David must stand trial.
When the defense demanded a quick preliminary hearing, we said, bring it on. What we have seen in this preliminary hearing, and the preliminary hearing, they methodically presented over 5 different days the evidence that showed probable cause. But by probable cause, and I would argue, by an overwhelming amount of probable cause, and we will eventually prove this beyond a reasonable doubt.
With David ordered to continue being held in his LA County jail cell without bail, the charges he currently faces are steep. In addition to first-degree murder, of a child under the age of 14, and unlawful mutilation of human remains. However, here is the extra important part. Due to David's charges linked to both financial gain in order to try and save his music career, plus lying in wait, which we covered earlier, therefore this makes David liable for the next closest thing to justice.
These charges include the most serious charges that a DA's office can bring. That is first-degree murder with special circumstances. These special circumstances carry with it, along with the first-degree murder charge, a maximum sentence of life without the possibility of parole or the death penalty.
Now, in some recent updates to this story, it does seem like the LA County DA is really looking to throw the book at David.
Outside the courtroom, the latest we are told is that prosecutors are still weighing whether or not to seek the death penalty. But could David realistically be sentenced to his final fate? Legally, yes. The truth is David has been charged with murder in the first degree, involving special circumstances, in turn opening capital punishment as a legit possible outcome. And according to the LA Times, not only has Los Angeles historically been unusually aggressive in pursuing legal executions, but as of 2 months ago, prison facilities in California were stocked full with over 550 inmates under the sentence of death. Again, that's more than a quarter of the entire US. With that said though, unfortunately the chances of this really happening are super low. If you read a little deeper, the last actual execution that went through in the state of California was over 20 years ago, back in 2006. And in fact, in 2019, after taking office as their new governor, Cali's Gavin Newsom went on to sign an executive order issuing a moratorium over the state's death penalty.
That's California Governor Gavin Newsom saying that he will be ending California death penalties.
So to sum this up in simple terms, yes, juries are still able to hand out death sentences, and capital punishment still technically remains on the state books. Yet the governor just won't sign off on any while he is in office. In theory, a new governor could take over and easily undo this, but as it stands today, most likely outcome for David is instead life in prison, probably without parole, leaving him plenty of time to think about his idiotic decisions.
We believe the actual evidence will show David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, nor was he the cause of her death.
Despite David and his lawyers, who continue to claim he was not the reason why Celeste is no longer with us, arguing the evidence is insufficient and that the charges should be dismissed, thankfully we won't have to wait too much longer for justice to be served. David's next court appearance for his formal arrangement is scheduled here for the end of August. And then, according to California code, barring any further delays, his official trial must begin within the next 60 days. But be prepared, because prosecutors tell us they've only presented a small fraction so far of the graphic evidence they plan to bring forward. Death penalty or not, David should never walk out of prison a free man ever again. However, the sad reality is at least he can even have a chance at fighting for his future, unlike the young victim whose life he stole.